Hey, what's up, guys? This is Asha Williams coming to you again with another amazing episode of the Melanated Traveler. This one is special. First and foremost, happy Black History Month. You know what I'm saying? Happy Black History Month, man. It's absolutely amazing to have this platform. Y'all already know, like we like to inspire the diaspora to travel the world. We have amazing guests that I'm about to announce to y'all here shortly, but we just wanna share our truth. We want these planes to be filled up with us. We want to go to these amazing destinations. We want to have the ability to have the potential to live abroad, to be able to navigate, this world. And that's why we have this platform. So without further ado, I have a special guest. First and foremost, this episode is special. So for those that have been following the show for a very long time, this is episode number 40, right? The Big Four. And if you know anything about the podcasting game, you know, 9 times out of 10, most people don't get past 5 episodes, right? So I just want to share to y'all, to my listeners that and my viewers that y'all are the reason why I keep going and why this platform is in existence. And I truly appreciate the support. I truly thank each and every person that has ever listened and ever watched the show. And we're gonna keep moving. This train gonna keep rolling. We're gonna keep moving, we're gonna keep pushing. So I just wanted to share that. Number 40, man. 40. We moving on. But I got an amazing guest in the building. First and foremost, how you doing today?
I'm feeling really well. First of all, happy Black History Month and congratulations on your 40th episode. That's amazing.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So I have Miss Asha Farrah in the building, aka Mexpat Dreamers.
Yes.
We gonna dive into it, but I just gotta give you a bio. I gotta give you your flowers first.
Thank you.
First and foremost, anybody that I get in the show, I'm a fan. I love your content. I love everything that you stand about. We're gonna dive deeper into it and
Yeah.
as to why you got this platform and this business started in Mexico. But I'm absolutely excited to dive deeper into it. But before we get into what I call the meat and potatoes, let me share a few things about Asha. All right, so Asha is an expat, and she's also a legal resident of Santiago de Querétaro, right? Querétaro.
Querétaro.
How you say it? Querétaro, Mexico.
Yes, you said
Okay.
it really well.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I'm practicing my Spanish. I'm intermediate right now. I'm intermediate. But she's originally from I don't even have to say New York. All I gotta say is Harlem.
I'm from
That's it.
Harlem.
That's it
Yeah.
right there. She's from Harlem, right? So if y'all know anything about Harlem, some just legends have come out of that town and come out of that city. She's traveled to over 30 countries and she's touched 5 continents. And her mindset is she always had the desire to, want to travel abroad. She had, you know, just daydreaming about being in a different country, speaking a different language, through, living through, and experiencing through culinary experiences and also, you know, just creating memorable experiences around the world. After traveling to nearly probably about a third of Mexico over the last 15 years. Her decision to move there was easy, after traveling through different parts of Mexico and navigating through it. And I think that social media like starts to glamorize becoming an expat, but they don't actually show the steps of becoming an expat, which we'll dive deeper into it. Nobody really lays out any logical steps into how to become an expat and how to become a nomad. So moving abroad, can be challenging, but we're talking to Asha. She's one of those people that can provide solutions for y'all as y'all keep listening and watching. So this is why Asha created her company, the Mexpat Dreamers, to empower aspiring expats to design an intentional life of making a living, making living abroad a reality, right? She offers one-on-one consultations, discussions. She has developed discussion series to have deeper conversations about how can you make that possible. And then last but not least, she also tailors relocation services to your lifestyle because everybody has a different lifestyle. So she tailors that to you, which is absolutely amazing. So without further ado, I want to welcome Asha Farrah to the show.
Thank you so much for
I
that
did all
warm
right on the intro.
introduction. Yeah, you did all right.
Yeah, so I mean, let's dive into it. You probably get this question a lot, but I gotta ask because I think it's certain areas of Mexico that has a stigma. I think it's certain places, but just Mexico as a whole has a stigma or a sense of the country being so dangerous that, oh, why would you go over there? What made you choose, like, 15 years of navigating through Mexico? What made you decide that? What made you fall in love with Mexico? Let's start there.
Yeah, I'll jump right in with that. That's a great question. For me, I chose Mexico because it's one of the richest countries that I've ever traveled to. And so we all know rich means something different. For me here, it's very rich spiritually. The landscape is very rich. The culinary scene is very rich. It's very diverse here. The history is very rich. And upon traveling to so many places, when you find a rich place, you can't turn away. So I'll go back. I had the typical college experience. I came here for spring break, Cancun, right? 19, 20 years old. I'm like, okay, this is what people do, beaches, parties. Luckily for me, I booked a day trip to Chichen Itza. So I was able to check out one of their pyramids. And I think that's when everything changed for me. Because I think what they told us or tell us present tense about Mexico is the danger, the unsafety, beaches, parties, right? That's all you know. And you only know a few places, Cancun, Cabo, and Mexico City, right? But what we don't know is Mexico has 32 states. It has 32 states. It's a very large place. You think about in comparison to the US, do you have unsafe places in the US? Absolutely. Do you have areas in the US? Like, for example, for me, I lived in Washington, D.C. prior to moving here. There were parts of Washington, D.C. where people said, look, after 7, I wouldn't slide by there, right? Like, you from New
Facts.
Orleans, I'm from New York. We know how the game goes. But out of 32 states, there are many, many safe states and safe cities here. For example, I live in beautiful Santiago de Querétaro. That's a city in the state of Querétaro, one of the safest cities. Another place, Merida, is one of the safest cities in Mexico. So safety is not going to be an issue here for expats. And the reason why I say that is because I've traveled to 16 of the 32 states. So that's 50% of Mexico. I have not had an issue, but you know what I have noticed? I've noticed the same things. Mexicans are very warm, they're very kind, they're very welcoming. They want to share their culture with you. And so some of the places in Mexico that may have issues around safety are going to be border states. And those are not states, if you're an expat, that you would ever consider living. You don't have the Spanish to live there. There is not the lifestyle for you to live there. So I tell people, do not allow safety to be an issue for you in thinking about relocating to Mexico. And I hope that was clear.
No. I got it. Well, one, I just want to double back to one thing for somebody that may be new to listening or may not have the knowledge is. So she brought up about the Chichen Itza. For those that don't know, the Chichen Itza is one of the 7 wonders of the world.
Correct.
So I recommend, normally people first, first city in Mexico is Cancun. But for
Yep.
those that don't know how to get to the Chichen Itza, it's about, I would say, about 2.5 hours away from Cancun.
Yeah, and they have a lot of day tours set up that you can take as soon as you arrive. If you're at a hotel, if you're at an Airbnb, you can kind of set something up. And it is a day tour. So you don't want to have any other plans. They pick you up very early in the morning. You go, there's other stops along the way. You get to learn about the Mayan culture, which is extremely rich. And so there's so, again, I go back to that history, right? Because again, when we think back growing up in the US, you said New Orleans, I said New York. There was not a lot of Mexican history that we learned about, right? You know, some of us know a little bit about the Mayan calendar, things of that nature, but there's more to that. You know, there's indigenous cultures here, there's Afro Mexicans here. There's a lot to learn about Mexico.
You know what's crazy, and I said this off the record. I'll say it on live, y'all. I'm a little ashamed being from Louisiana, and I never touched Mexico yet. Like, it's crazy.
Shameful.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And the
But
reason
now we
why I brought
locked
that
in, so
up,
you got to come to Mexico.
I got to come. And the reason why I brought that up is because, like, just Louisiana as a whole, like our culture, like the Creole culture, gumbo,
Yep.
mostly all of our culinary dishes, has some type of Spanish influence, Spanish and African from the Congo, South Africa,
Right.
East Africa, all combined into some of these dishes that people love. Shout out to my city. We got the Super Bowl. We got the Super Bowl this year, man. Shout out. I don't really, if I had to choose between the two, I'm a Raiders fan, so I don't want the Chiefs to win. So shout
Okay,
out
so
to the
we going with
Eagles.
the
Shout out
Eagles.
to the Chiefs too for making it. Y'all enjoy yourself and y'all be straight, man, out there. But get back to it. So, like, outside of Cancun, like, when did you start it? So 15 years of navigating. When did you start to have the mindset? Because that's hard to do. So let's talk
Mhm.
about. I'm gonna talk about mindset just for a little while. I want to stay on that for a little while because
Yeah.
the mindset to leave these highly touristic areas and for you to venture off into what I'm gonna call the uncharted path of Mexico.
Yeah.
How did that mindset? Like, how did you get there? Did you take a few trips like consistently to Cancun, and then one day you decided to travel through different parts of Mexico, or you just started navigating through that?
So that's a good question. Mindset plays a large role when you're a traveler because I think your mindset is that you have to be open, right? We agree with that. You have to have an open mindset because you're going to experience something that's completely different. And I always say more than that, your mindset allows you to know that when you travel or live abroad, you got to be open to experiencing a different version of yourself. Traveling unlocks different versions of yourself. So your mindset is going to shift. But back to your original question, another thing that's fantastic about Mexicans are their pride, right? They have great pride. So when they are from different states and you meet them somewhere, so I'm in Cancun and they're like, you should come to Puebla. Puebla has the best food. Or you should come to Baja California Sur because we have better beaches than Cancun. That opened me up because it was like, oh, wait, mentally, from a geographical standpoint, I'm like Cancun, Mexico City, and Cabo, right? Because that's what we're taught.
Yep.
I started meeting people and I'm seeing they're telling me about other places in Mexico. So I start slowly but surely. I do places like Mexico City, places that we have familiarity with. I go there, I go to their museums, I learn more about the culture. I'm like, I got to go to these other places where the culture is. And one thing about Mexico, it's very easy to travel domestically. They have a great luxury bus system. I always tell people living in Querétaro, it's the middle of the country. So I'm in central Mexico. So I'm surrounded by 4 states easily that I can take a luxury bus to 4 hours or less. So that was attractive to me, should I say, that I could travel very easily. They also have domestic airlines that are very affordable. So if you go to hubs like Cancun or Mexico City, you can easily fly to places like Oaxaca, Puebla, other places in Mexico where it's like, oh, that was under $100. I might as well go check it out. So that's what grabbed me. The
I'm just
ease of
glad. I'm
traveling
just
in
glad you're really
Mexico.
diving into it like that, because
Yeah,
similar to Colombia, Mexico gets a bad rap for all people think about Mexico is cartel and drugs, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful country.
it's
It's
one of the
absolutely
most
amazing.
beautiful countries that I've been to. And I'm saying that from a landscape perspective. If you like desert, they have desert. If you like jungle, they have jungle. If you like mountains, they have mountains. Working with my clients, that's one of the first questions that I ask people about relocation. And most people have never been asked that question before. What landscape do you desire to wake up to every day? That's not something that we think about. So, getting back to your question about mindset, Mexico really has it all. And again, we just think beaches, but no, it's way more than that. And I'm happy to expose that.
Perfect, perfect. Wow, that's amazing. I want to dive into this question
Hmm?
and take your time with this one because because a lot of people they may see you now and they don't know the path that it took for you to get to where you needed to go. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Let's
Yes, I do
just
know what you're
whatever you
saying.
want to share with your panther. How did you get from that corporate life and in America to transitioning? That's why I want to talk about mindset first, guys, so y'all can listen to me because it starts here. You
It
got to have
starts
that mindset shift first, that paradigm shift. So how you was able to shift from that corporate lifestyle in America to shifting to a country in the country of Mexico, and then also lastly developing a platform and services for people so they don't have to take the long path like you did, right?
That's a really good question. So I'll start off with mindset. I tend to look at life as not, challenges up ahead. Oh, I want to move abroad. It's going to be so challenging. I look at things as opportunities because, again, I know on the other side, there's this great version of me that didn't exist 4 years ago. So this is year 4 in Santiago de Querétaro for me.
Wow,
So I'll step
congratulations.
Thank you so much. So I'll step back. In 2018, I recognized like a lot of people in America had a lot of college debt, student loan debt. And so I knew while traveling, during my vacations in the corporate life, if I wanted to move abroad, mindset wise, I wanted to be debt free. I wanted to start a new life from scratch. I wanted to bring a new, clean version of me over. So what I did back in 2018, now keep in mind this is 2025, so I'm glad you asked about the story. I went to my spouse and I said, we both have corporate jobs living in Washington, D.C. Let's live off of one salary for 3 years to pay off all of our debt. I'm going to say that again. We lived off one salary for 3 years to pay off our debt. Most people don't want to do that. So I decided that I could compromise short term for a long term gain. Okay. So again, decided to compromise short term for a long term gain. The long term gain was to live abroad. The short term gain was we got to live off one salary. So things that I was used to doing regularly, DC culture, going to brunch every weekend, going to the parties, traveling as frequently. I had to cut that in half because we were now living off of one salary. But we had 6 figures of student loan debt. That was not going to be smart to carry into a new experience. Okay. So that's what we did. We did that for 3 years. And then the pandemic happened in 2020. And so everyone was home. We were working from home, and it allowed us to save a little bit quicker. So we ended up paying off $130,000 of student loan debt in 2.5 years.
Wow.
So that was the first step.
Hold on. That's a bar. I need you to say that again. How much?
$1,000 in 2.5 years. I tell people you gotta want it. And when you want something, you have to have discipline. And if you have discipline, you gotta be willing to make a sacrifice, right? How could I still live the lifestyle I was living in DC and then expect to just somehow pop up on a beach in Mexico? That's not how it works.
Right.
So I had to get my discipline together, and that's what we did. We lived off the one salary for 2.5 years. And after we paid off that student loan debt, we continued to live on one salary. So we built up our savings for when we relocated to Mexico because we both knew that we would be entrepreneurs, and we all know, entrepreneurship is tough.
It is.
Yeah. So you have
me.
to want it. And I think we kind of talked about this offline, and I'm glad you asked the question. Expat life, digital nomad life, traveling, all of the above is very glamorized right now. But no one wants to tell you that version of me that existed in 2018 that had the mindset to be like, I got to tell my friends I don't want to go to brunch. I got to tell my friends I can't go on a weekend trip. But I am now debt free. So that sacrifice paid itself off. So the game plan after COVID hit and we paid off of our student loan debt, we decided to save for one more year living off one salary, and we relocated in 2021.
Wow. That's absolutely amazing. Man, that's absolutely amazing. I'm interested in, let's transition into business.
Yeah.
Just the navigate, because a lot of people think that some countries are different, but how is the the entrepreneur lifestyle, developing a business in Mexico? How was that transition for you whenever you got there? Once you got settled, how was that transition?
Yeah, so that's another good question. For me, first things first about entrepreneurship, you have to find out where there's a gap in the work that you're looking to offer, right? So we know living abroad is very popular right now. And so you see a lot of people with services showing you, again, the glamorized life, the Instagram version, the TikTok version. But for me, because I am a traveler through and through, right? I plan all my itineraries. Like I plan everything. And I travel off the beaten path, as you said earlier. So for me, it was like, wait a second. I noticed when I was looking to relocate, there was a gap in coverage. I could find everybody on a beach. I could find everybody posted up at a Mexico sign, but nobody talked about how to obtain a visa legally, right? Nobody talked about how to obtain an apartment legally. When I was looking into healthcare, nobody mentioned that. Nobody mentioned international life insurance. Nobody mentioned that Mexico has a floating currency, which means today the currency could be X and tomorrow it could dip or it could increase. It could be more favorable for Americans or less favorable for Americans. No one mentioned that it was a cash culture, right? Mexico is still a cash culture. So no one was mentioning these things. And furthermore, they only highlighted the same places to live, which was Playa del Carmen, Mexico City, Puerto Vallarta. But for me, I wanted a more authentic experience. I wanted the opportunity to speak Spanish every day. I wanted the opportunity to build community with a local culture. Those are things that I desired. So I had to find a place that reflected that. So that allowed me to see, again, there was a gap in coverage. And based on my experience of traveling here for 15 years, I knew this is what I want to offer to people because I don't want them to have the same questions, uncertainty that I felt when looking up those important things.
Wow. That's absolutely. Let's dive into. I will say shout out to Tulum, and the only reason I say shout out to Tulum, rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle. That's the
Yeah,
only reason. Besides him promoting it and doing this video, I wouldn't know nothing about Tulum. Now Tulum is what I consider to be. I compare Tulum now to Tulum used to be very undeveloped for those that
very
don't
much
know.
so.
So when I look at a country that's similar is El Salvador. They have an area called Del Tuco. It's very undeveloped, but obviously that president has that country has a decent relationship, with America, and they starting to get more investors in. But anyway, so how are some of these other like, let's dive into some of the cities that besides the popular ones everybody go to that you would recommend that people should.
Oh, yeah, certainly. If you are a foodie, I would definitely recommend visiting Puebla City. This is the home of the mole. Now, someone that is a local Mexican will probably argue with me if they're from Oaxaca or another place, but I'm telling you, food tours is up next. Puebla got the mole, right? So I highly recommend Puebla if you love food culture, Mexican food culture. If you are a beach person, and I'm talking outside of like the Cancun, Playa del Carmen, I'm talking about breathtaking, dramatic landscapes. Baja California Sur, I recommend that state wholeheartedly. If you're an architecture enthusiast, as I am, I
Yep,
recommend
me
San
too.
Luis
I actually
Potosi.
got my degree in architecture.
Ooh. Well, Baroque architecture is very big here. It's absolutely stunning. I recommend San Luis Potosi.
Gotcha.
And I certainly recommend my city, Santiago de Querétaro. We have a lot going on here that people don't know. It's one of those under the radar cities. It's become more popular in recent years, certainly. But we have a wine and cheese region. We have a biosphere region called Sierra Gorda that's full of waterfalls, just beautiful nature hikes, sunrise hikes that are fantastic, where you are really on the same level as the clouds and the mountains. I just did that about a month ago. So that's when I say it's a lot to do here. Sports culture is big. We have football, we have American football here, we have tennis culture here. It's so much to get into. The music scene here is pretty big. I did a concert a few months ago. J Balvin was here. I think I probably paid like $25 to see him. So we have a lot to offer in Mexico. That's why it's getting back to what you said, mindset. Think about your life. Again, I said DC for me, it was brunch culture, things like that. Be open to something different because different can be better or different can meet the version of you mentally that you're at now.
Definitely, definitely.
Hmm.
What's interesting is so like, what are some of your strategies? Not necessarily strategies, but how do you divulge yourself in the culture? And then, what are some areas of Mexico? Where the aunties at, man? Where the aunties and uncles at? No, that's what I'm gonna just get straight to the point. I'm interested because I've read up on a few things just about a lot of people, especially where I'm from. A lot of people talk about the Great Migration up north, but a lot of people don't talk about the Great Migration down south,
Hmm.
where ex-slaves, left and went to Mexico. So I think that's amazing as well, to share. So people can have an understanding of like it's the culture is so rich there and it's so diverse.
So you're asking more about the Afro Mexican culture, like if you're
Yeah,
interested in learning. Oh yeah, for sure. I would recommend these two states off the top of my head, and well, three actually. Veracruz. That's definitely a state that's going to give you a lot of Afro Mexican culture. Another state is going to be Oaxaca, and then the last state is going to be Guero. Guero is on the coast. They call it like the Costa Chica area. You're going to see a lot of Mexicans with similar complexions to myself.
gotcha,
Yep.
gotcha. So like, what's the first step in even taking that path? Like, what would be the first step for somebody to say, what, like this is something that I want to do. Like I want to, uproot myself and come here to Mexico. What's the first step in it?
I'm glad you asked that because what I find is people fall in love with places before they realize if they're eligible to live there. And so my first step that I tell people is make sure you're eligible to live in the country. There are visa requirements, okay? There is a financial component, and you want to make sure that you have enough to meet the financial component before you start falling in love with the place. Like, oh, I want to move here. I heard the food is good here, the people are cool, this, that, and the third. No, you first want to make sure that you're legally eligible.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's the first step. I would say the second step after that is understanding your budget. And why I say that is because people always talk about Mexico is a cheap country to live. That's why a lot of people come down here. And I disagree. I think Mexico is an affordable place to live. Cheap and affordable are not synonymous, and you have to understand the difference. You can find places in Mexico that have that very, very low budget, but do you speak Spanish fluently? Are you able
Mhm.
to immerse in that culture? You know, does that place have an international airport if you need to run back to your family real quick, in case of an emergency? There are going to be pros and cons of every place. And that's what I break down to my clients when I work with them. And so I almost do like a speed dating exercise when I'm first meeting with my clients. What's your budget? What are your Wi-Fi needs? Are you eligible for residency? What are your healthcare needs? If you decide to move somewhere small with limited infrastructure and you get sick, you may have to go to a bigger hospital in the next big city over. So if you're already coming down with some ailments, that's something to think of. Do you have respiratory issues? Because we do have high elevation in some of our cities. Those are things to think about. Do you understand how the floating currency works? Do you want to sign a rent price that you think you can afford, but what if the currency flips and it's less favorable for Americans? So those are the type of things that I ask my clients when we meet. I try to get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, yeah. You got some stuff that I wasn't even thinking about, like elevation and all these. Man,
Because the
that's
city that I live in has a high elevation. Again, Santiago de Querétaro, for your listeners just coming in. And one thing that I was really not aware of is something called elevation sickness. And so what happened was I was living in DC, Washington, DC prior, where the elevation is more flat. And so I relocated here, and the elevation went from zero to hero real quick. And so you feel things like what's called elevation sickness, where you can have migraines or headaches. You can feel a little bit nauseous. It's your body kind of getting used to the new environment that you are arriving in. And for some people, that can be a day. Some people don't feel it. Some people, it can be up to a month. So you want to think about those things before relocating. And again, those are the things we both agree are not really discussed enough on social media. And I think sometimes what happens is most time I meet with clients and I say, do you have any idea of where you want to move? Yeah, I want to live by the beach. That's the first question because it's Mexico. Of course you want to live
hmm
by the beach. But have you thought about the cons of living by the beach? I'm not dissuading anybody from living by the beach, but are you ready for a prevalent hurricane season? Are you familiar with a lot of mold issues that exist in a lot of the older condos? It's nice when the weather is great, but what about the season when it's extremely hot? Are you prepared
hmm
for rainy
or
season?
rainy season.
Yeah, are you familiar with the sargassum issue that exists on some of the beaches near Cancun? So I really try to give people, like I said, the pros and cons.
How I want to make sure I word this question correctly. How do you pay homage to the Mexican culture? And this is what I mean. This is what I mean. That blue book that we have is very powerful, and a lot of people are. And I'll just say it. Some people may get offended. A lot of people are very ignorant to the fact that I'm American. I can just come over here and flash
Take
some money
advantage.
around, do this. Flash some money around, do this, do that. Guys, move here, which you already alluded to, right? Move here, guys. It's cheap. This, that, and the third. But also, we also got to think about, especially like in our country, right? During those redlining days where prominent towns are starting to get populated by different cultures. And what I meant by respecting the Mexican culture is not the fact that we don't want people to move there. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what I'm saying is when you're there, have the respect to learn the culture, to learn the language. That's kind of what I was trying to
This
get at.
this is my favorite question that you've asked, and I know some people are not going to like the answer, but I have to be transparent. It's 2025. Gentrification is real in Mexico, and it's really impacting the local community. So let's talk about it. The first thing is you want to show a sign of respect when you move anywhere other than your home naturally. You want to have respect in your home, but certainly when you move to another culture, you want to show a sign of respect. So let's talk about some of those ways to combat gentrification. It happen naturally because you're coming down here with the US dollar. They have the Mexican peso. So you're already walking into a situation where you have an advantage. But you're walking into a situation where this is somebody else's home too, right? So you have to be mindful of that. So the first piece of advice is learn the language. Please learn Spanish. Don't say, oh, I live in Playa or I live in other places where everyone speaks English. That's okay. Learn the language. Number one, you're going to have a better experience here because people of the local community are going to want to engage with you. And you're going to be able to expand your community and meet local friends. So that's number one as a way to combat gentrification. Number two, rent local. Let me tell you what I mean by renting local. You have a lot of people from different areas, Europe, Canada, Australia, even the States, who have brought their currency down, and it's been enough for them to buy a place and flip it into an Airbnb or flip it into a rental because they have the capital, right? So what does that do? They're going to charge you USD prices, you know? So I want people to understand rent from a local family. I rent local. So that means every month that I'm paying my rent, money is going into a local family's pocket. It's not going into a real estate company's pocket. There's not a commission that's, going that way. Okay? Number three, familiarize yourself with the actual cost of living. And I say that because, let me give you an example. If you're renting a 2-bedroom in New Orleans, that's going to be $1,600. And you get out here and you find out you can get a 2-bedroom penthouse for $1,100. You're like, jackpot, I'm saving $500 and I'm getting a better place. Incorrect. You're doing it all wrong and you're contributing to gentrification. What you need to do is actually understand the real value of that place. Because what happens is if you agree to $1,100, the next family that comes behind you is not going to be able to afford that. So you've risen the price of the cost of living for someone else. Okay? So again, we've talked about learn the language, rent local, so we're putting money in local people's pockets, understanding the actual cost of living so we're not rising the price for local. And then the obvious, eat local, shop local, participate in the culture, go to museums, go to exhibits, participate in the cultural festivals, go to sporting events, meet local friends.
Man, guys, we could spend an hour just on that topic.
We could.
It's very important. It's very important for y'all to learn the language. And you know what? Let me just be clear for the Americans out there. Let me just be clear. Spanish is the language, regardless if you living in Mexico or not, is the language that you need to learn.
It
It
is.
basically English in America now. Wherever you go, it's Latin. It's a Latin present, no matter what state you go in. So you gotta respect it. You gotta respect it. And I think the reason why I wanted to go there is because the reason why I brought that up is because that's why I wanted to talk about respecting cultures. Because, and it's nothing against people from where I'm from. I'll just say it. Because I used to be this person until I started traveling. As soon as you hear somebody speaking Spanish, you automatically think they're from Mexico. Or they Mexican.
Right, not even the case.
You are not knowing that it's so many different Latin countries in the world. So have some respect on cultures, man. Ask people where they're from.
Yeah,
Don't
certainly.
automatically assume they're from Mexico. That's what I was getting at too.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think those tips are very important. And I'm going to give you one last final one. The other tip is again, you're coming down here with your currency. Try and volunteer. I tell all of these tips that I'm giving you, I tell my clients, right? I don't want to work with people who are interested in coming down here as gentrifiers. So try and volunteer. It doesn't have to be once a week, it could be once a month. But make sure that you're looking to make a difference in the community you live in. You should be doing that at home anyway. But certainly, as you come to a different culture, no matter what that is. So maybe you teach English to a local family here that's looking to learn English. If you have a digital skill, maybe you can translate a menu that's in Spanish to English. Those are the type of skills that they're looking for down here that could be of use. So I continue to urge people who are interested, even when you're thinking about Mexico and you're thinking about, I can't wait to be on the beach, I can't wait to be eating the great food, you're going to get all of that. But also think about, even from the States, how you can be a blessing, how you can participate in the culture before you move.
Definitely, definitely. Wow, wow. You know, let's talk about some experiences. Like, as far as like besides the food, like some experiences that, and I know everybody's different, but I just want to share, just like you already alluded to, the diversity of landscape in Mexico. But what are some lifestyle experiences that you would recommend? I know a lot of people like ATVs, a lot of people like to sail. Like, what are some things that you've done that you can recommend that people should check out whenever they're there?
One thing that I would say, I don't know if this interests a lot of people, but I have certainly become a snorkeling enthusiast here. The marine life, if you like to swim, if you like to dive, if you like to snorkel, is incredibly rich. So I would definitely say that to people who have those interests. Also, hiking in nature is very rich. The biodiversity here is very rich. So if you're someone who's active, if you're someone who likes to be in nature, there's so many opportunities for you here. There are also groups. There's a park that I walk in a couple of times a week, and someone local saw me and she just came up to me in Spanish and was like, I see you a lot, you should join our group, we meet on Sundays. And that's what I mean about the
Wow.
welcoming
And
nature.
you
Like,
know how to
think
speak the
about at
language.
home, we don't do
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
We
No, we just gonna
certainly
get people that look like.
Exactly. So, if that's your interest, if you are someone who loves art, there's a big art culture here. Certainly in a place like Oaxaca, there's a big art culture, but there's still art culture throughout Mexico, because Mexicans are very handy. They like building, they like painting, they like drawing. So, if that's something that you're into, that culture exists here. And then, like you said, the ATVing, the zip lining, all of that is like right around the corner. So many caves here, swimming caves. Like, there are places like Grutas Tolintongo, if I'm not mispronouncing it, which is just a few hours from Mexico City. It's a popular tourist spot. You've probably seen all the beautiful caves filled with water. They look like Roman bathtubs. Like,
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people do the underwater photography in Mexico as well. I noticed that.
you know what?
Yeah.
That's another big one. I did that for my birthday at a beach in Oaxaca, and very affordable. I think it was an hour, all pictures included, and he took so many great pictures of me. And I think it was like $25 or $30. Let's also talk about getting back to how not to gentrify. Sorry, that's a big topic for me.
No, no, no. Hit it.
Tipping
Hit it.
culture. Tipping culture. Locals work really hard to make sure that you're satisfied with everything, whether it's at a restaurant, whether, like you said, underwater, for tours, beach tours, anything. So, on average, I would say people tell you the tipping culture is 10%. But because the cost of living is lower here, I err on the side of 15%. But I will tell you, if you truly like your service, 20%. So I just want to say that, because I get that question a lot from clients or people who DM me, like, I'm going to Mexico, how should I tip? That's how you should tip.
Got you. No, no, I appreciate that. I'm very interested. I'm very interested in knowing, like, what's been like one of the most surprising mindsets or shifts in transformation that you've seen after people, uproot themselves from what I would call their home base to Mexico. Like, what's been some of the surprising things that you've seen? People just transform there.
That's a great question as well. And I just got a text from a client that I helped relocate to San Miguel de Allende, which is in the state of Guanajuato, about an hour and 15 minutes from Santiago de Querétaro, where I live. It was one word. It was peace. And this person said, thank you for providing me peace. And I was just like, I woke up to that text like, what? And what I realized is that's a commonality. There is a peace that exists here. I can speak to my experience. Like I said, being a Black woman, I'm almost 6 feet tall. So when I walk down the street, I'm going to be noticed, because Mexicans typically are not as tall, And what I've always received is a welcoming nature. And I think I can speak to being a Black woman, and you can speak to being a Black man. I feel like over the last 10 years, I'll say it since 2016, things have been rough in the US. And being Black, things have felt even tougher. I feel like we're consistently on edge. We're on guard. What's the next thing that's going to happen? Am I going to be targeted? And getting to Mexico and feeling none of those things at first is very strange. because I'll speak on my behalf. When I first moved here, Mexicans are very inquisitive. They like to talk, and they would come up to me and say "una pregunta," like a question, and I would be like, "What? What do you know?" Like thinking like, "What's the scam now? Like, what's the hustle?" But that was so sad that that was my mindset because that's what I was used to. Originally from New York, living in big cities like DC, it's like,
Hmm.
come on, what you want? And so realizing for a lot of my clients that I work with, there is a level of peace. So when you wake up, for example, where I live, there are mountains in the background. The weather year round, they call it eternal spring here. So it's about 78 degrees year round. So you have great weather. You have a great landscape that you're able to view. You know, people are not bothering you. They want to get to know you. That brings about a certain level of peace. You know, something else I always say is it allows all of your senses to be awakened. You don't realize how dull you become when you're just on that, you know, you're just going around the ladder. But here it feels like things are brighter. The buildings are more colorful. The food is more colorful. The mountains in the background. So I would say peace.
Wow. I'm about to ask you this question, and I want your own definition. What is your definition of a nomad?
Oh. You know what? Because I think we talked about this off camera. It
Yep.
looks different for everybody. So to me, I would actually answer you back and say there is no definition of a nomad.
Thank you.
Because I think a nomad represents different people, right? Someone could say I'm a nomad, but I've been in the same place for 4 years. Now I've been in the same city, but then I've
Hmm.
traveled to 16 of the 32 states in the last couple of years. There are people that I work with, clients that I have that are only here for 6 months, 1 month, 3 months, a couple of days. So I feel like there is no definition of a nomad. We all
Thank you. And
represent
I'm glad you said that. And we go back to the glamorization. I got to say it again.
hmm
Guys, again, nothing against certain creators, but guys, it's whatever path that you choose. I know a
hmm
lot of people that's in the creative space.
hmm
Shout out to Culture Cam. She living
hmm
over there in Portugal. She's doing her thing. She does food tours,
hmm
right? I have people like, roaming the globe. This man has like 6 or 7 businesses because he
Yeah.
likes everything that he does. He's in the photography, he's in the modeling. I got some people that still work corporate jobs. They're
Yeah.
just online, right? So
And
like,
some people that are
it's
retired and
whatever
still
you
living
decide.
abroad.
Yeah, right. It's whatever you decide, which is very interesting. Like, I guess, okay, I'll give it to the people that want. Let's say the people that want to still, have that quote unquote safety net and want to work, and still want to move. What are like some of your top 3 websites that you would recommend that people can go to and kind of look at, to see what's some remote jobs they can find? Because apparently, COVID was the time where people started traveling, people started to realize that, hey, maybe I don't want to go back to the office. Like, what's some websites that you would recommend people check out?
You know, that's a good question. I would say Fiverr is one of them. I meet a lot of creatives in the work that I do here because it's a lot of co-working spaces. Not a lot, but a good amount of co-working spaces in Querétaro. So I meet people who are on Fiverr and doing creative work from there. Also, I would say teaching is a big opportunity here. A lot of people do teach. They either teach remotely, like how we're speaking right now, or they also teach in person. There are opportunities for you to teach at a school here. But then I'm going to give you some other ideas that are outside of like your typical remote job. And I'm going to go back to how I started my business. Look for where there are gaps. So if you have a creative skill, for example, I know people here who do really well who sell plates because there are certain cuisines that do really well here. We have Mexican, we have Asian, and things like that. But I know someone who sells Jamaican plates. They sell plates on the weekends. They clean up because there are people here looking for that Caribbean food that we're not getting regularly. So again, look for the gaps. There are people who do hair here that clean up. I promise you. Because think about it, we are African Americans, we have natural hair like myself. Black women love to switch it up. So you might be going from your
Mm-hmm.
braids to your weaves. There's a sister that I know that cleans up. So it's not always about having that more traditional remote job. It's also thinking about a skill that you may have and there being a gap in the coverage of the skill. And you can take advantage of that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Being where I'm from,
Yes.
I learned how to cook everything from scratch since I was 5 years old. You
So
know what I'm
you would be
saying?
a hit here. You would be an
You know what I'm
absolute
saying?
hit here.
And I know they got a lot of, we talked about Mexico City. I did see, I don't know the names of them. I apologize for those businesses. I could have gave them a shout out, but I know Mexico City has kind of been more so of a hotspot for a lot of expats to travel to start, open up
Yes.
restaurants, soul food restaurants. Yeah, that's
Yeah, shout
absolutely
out to
amazing.
Tiara who had Black Sea Cocina. She recently transitioned the business, but she brought soul food to Mexico City.
Hmm. Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah,
So
shout
that
out
was
to her.
another way she was building culture. So that's why I'm giving you that example because a lot of us think, oh, how can we get that typical corporate job and bring it about? Think about also how you can do something different with a skill that you have, maybe a passion that you've always had.
Hmm.
This is the
Hmm.
time again to meet that new evolved version of yourself.
There you go. And that's the reason why I led with that, because I already knew you was gonna switch it up on your boy. I already know you was gonna switch it up on me. I already know. That's why I shared it. So like this is my last question. This one is very take your time with this one. You got
Yeah.
a lot of people on the fence right now, people that's listening to this. You've already motivated people to start Googling.
Hmm.
How do I get to Mexico? How do I
Hmm.
become an expat or nomad?
Yeah.
For the people that's on the fence right now, individuals that's on the fence that's listening and watching this right now, that they don't come from a family that normally travels or had that
Yes.
mindset, and but they're itching to get out there. What is your message to them? What is your message to the people that's on the fence to get out there and start exploring?
Certainly. I think the first thing that I think about is having courage, right? It's important to have courage in your life because there's so many opportunities we sometimes get that we don't take. And then we look back when we're older and say, man, I wish I would have even gave that a shot for 6 months. I wish I would have tried this for 3 months. So I encourage people to have courage. And then the second thing is you are going to meet a new version of yourself. I can't say this enough because I know so many people who feel so their life is very mundane. You do kind of the same things and it works for you. Comfortability works for people. But I always tell people there is a version of you that's waiting to emerge. And I think if you just give it a shot, the shot doesn't mean you have to move to Mexico. We got to crawl before we walk, right? Maybe visit and start with a touristy place so you feel safe. Start with a touristy place, but then look for the culture pockets when you're at the touristy place, right? So if you go to Mexico, do like I did at spring break, but maybe take that trip to Chichen Itza, right? Think about things like that. Find the culture pockets. And as you grow within yourself, as you evolve within yourself, as you build your courage, you will feel more comfortable exploring. So maybe expat life is not tomorrow for you or 6 months for you. Maybe it's a slow build, and that's okay too because social media makes it feel like you have to do everything at the pace of everyone else. Remember, I started in 2018 coming up with a student loan debt payoff plan, and I didn't get here till 2021. So have that courage and build slowly at your pace. But then get excited for that person that's going to meet you on the other side that you evolve to.
And that's awesome. That's awesome. And for those that's out here listening, how can we support you further? How can people follow you? How can people be able to find you and look at your services and everything that you provide? And then secondly, I just want to say it's an honor to have you on the platform. 40 is an awesome number, and it's an amazing number, and divine timing is everything. So it's the reason why we connected,
It
and I'm
is.
just so happy to have you on the show and just for you to just share so many gems. But I want to take this time out for you to share out any of your information and how can we support you and follow.
Thank you so much. So, as a reminder, my company is called Mexpat Dreamers, MEXPAT, and then Dreamers. And my work is really helping aspiring expats build an intentional life here in Mexico by focusing on the logistical considerations necessary to thrive. And so, again, my expertise lies in helping you find the right location for you to thrive, helping you obtain a legal residency here, guiding you figuring out how to rent legally an apartment, your healthcare. Do you need private or public healthcare? Understanding how the currency works. So I'm really offering you logistical support. I also offer relocation tours. I think no matter how great we talk about Mexico is, you need to come down and see it for yourself. And so if you want to find me, I'm at mexpatdreamers.com. I'm very active on my social media. Check me out on IG, same handle, Mexpat Dreamers. I'm also on Facebook as well, Mexpat Dreamers. And I also want to say congratulations to you again. 40 is nothing to sleep on. I wish you 40,000 more episodes. And I wish you purpose. I wish you to continue to grow your purpose and your passion.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. Well, guys, I hope you truly, truly, truly enjoyed this episode. Hey, y'all know my motto. I'll see you at the top because the bottom is just too crowded. Peace.
that was a good episode.
Yeah, yeah.
What you
So
think?
I
I
don't,
think it went really well.
yeah, I don't. Hey, look, it didn't stop yet, but
Okay.
I hit stop. No, you good. I can edit all this out.